Welcome to Plaid Swan's podcast, Marketing IRL. This show is all about the listener and their job in real life. If you're a marketer, agency worker, small business owner, or another type of marketing enthusiast, this is the podcast for you.
Today we are sitting down with Julie Hine and Steve Kane from KZIA to talk about radio buying. This is a two-part episode with professional perspectives from both sides. Vicki Dirksen of Plaid Swan will be joining us to discuss the buyer side in our next segment. But today we are discussing Julie and Steve's experience in the industry, how they organize advertisement time slots over at KZIA, and what approach they take to ensure client goals are met. So we'll probably just jump right into it if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
So of course, the whole point of this is just kind of for people to understand how radio spots and airtime happens. You know, as consumers, we don't know that stuff or think about it really. So Vicki, Vicki, she does all that type of stuff for us. So the other part of this podcast is that we're going to interview her about that side of things, but we thought it'd be really helpful too to get kind of the radio side of things. So that's the whole aim here, I guess. So if you just want to start out telling us a little bit about yourselves, whoever wants to go first, introduce yourself, your position, and kind of how you got into the radio industry in the first place.
So I'm Julie Hine. I am the president and CEO. I also do the laundry. And if there is an accident that a turkey has on our property, I'll clean that up as well. I started in this business in '96 kind of as an accident. I just wanted somebody to teach me how to sell things. And it was the third time that I had applied at the radio stations. And I was pretty desperate, like, come on, what's it going to take? I will work for less than everybody else makes. I will do whatever. Just teach me how to sell. And then as time went on, eventually I became the assistant sales manager and the director of sales and the general manager and then the president and CEO more recently, which, like, you never know who you're going to turn down twice that might have some gumption or whatever it is that I have. And it's been really fun over those 22 years to see Z102.9 start, to see we purchased KGYM in 2006, and then we launched Smart FM about a little over a year ago. So it's been fun to add those other products and have the job change. So it hasn't felt like much time at all.
Wow.
Very much. I'm Steve Kane. I'm the general sales manager. I spent 21 years with the local newspaper and the television station that they jointly owned at the time. And then obviously their digital agency as well. Had that background and left there, 5 years ago, and did something else private industry-wise in the area. And then somebody that I worked with introduced me to Julie. Even though I know that we had met before, she introduced me to Julie. And she and I got talking, and I was pretty excited about this as an opportunity. So I've been at the stations now for 3.5 years, going on 4. And if there's one thing I would say about it is that, actually a couple of things. One, every day is something cool and different and new because there's so much talent in our building. And the other thing is I didn't know what I didn't know until I got there and started working with it. So, I mean, for that reason alone, I'm pretty excited about that part. So
yeah, I bet it's kind of the same with marketing too. Every day is a new adventure. Every client presents a new adventure.
It never feels old. You never feel like you know everything.
And that's always what I tell people is my favorite part of this job is no 2 days are the same.
Right.
And it seems like it's the same for you guys.
I think a lot of marketing folks have that in common.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We like that. And we like the new challenges that come with all of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I just think the fact that it's not the same thing every day, like you guys said, it just makes it, you're actually excited to go to work because it's not like, oh, today I have to sit at a cubicle and do the same thing I did yesterday.
Right.
So it's definitely good, I think.
It works for some people, but not for us.
Right.
Right. So then, as for the radio spots themselves, how do you guys really organize that? Do you have like a spreadsheet, a schedule or something that you organize certain spots of time?
Yeah, so every client wants something different from us, right? And everybody has something that, maybe the beginning of the week works better for them, and weekends might work better for somebody else. Someone wants all drive times, somebody wants all after 7 p.m. And it is a huge puzzle to put together every day with how do we get everything in the right spot. And the person who does that job, we require 100% perfection from, which is, not a standard that most of us, I would not want to live up to, but the people who do that job are up for the challenge. And then there's, the organization of who and what of our team of 7 salespeople, who to hook them up with each client.
By specialty. One of the other things that we do, and the part where we're very careful, is in really how we input things into our system, because there's certain clients that really it wouldn't sound good if they were back to back, with others maybe in their similar field. And so we manage that very, very tightly, and we take that very seriously because we know what it sounds like as a listener. We also know, how the clients like to see it too. So, yeah, that's.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So accidents happen in every industry. So if something like that does take place and maybe a business who is running that advertisement is upset about it, how do you guys usually handle that?
We're pretty transparent with that stuff. If we made an error, we're going to atone for it. We're going to take care of it. And it's just good business practice. And I know you guys would see it that way too. The rest of it's just a matter of, the relationship that we have with the client usually goes deep enough where we can talk through that stuff if something does happen. Fortunately, it doesn't very often at all.
We joke that the person who puts together those logs with all of the ads on it every day, that they're allowed to make a semi-annual mistake. So in theory, we shouldn't have to deal with it very often. But, when you do find it, and typically it's us that would find it before it would get to a client, and we'll just call and say, what do you want? Let's fix this. What can we do to make you happy now? So it's usually a pretty easy situation.
Yeah. Especially if the relationship with the client is where we would like it to be. It's much easier to just, we can fix it and move on. It always, it's only happened a handful of times, maybe a couple even in the time I've been there, and it was never an issue because we were able to work through it together.
That's awesome.
And those are those people when you're talking about who likes to do what kind of work, right? So we have a lot of really creative people who like to write and who calendars really aren't as important to as other people. And then the people who put together those logs have to be really detailed, maybe not as creative, although we think they're plenty creative as well, but their unique ability has to be, I'm going to get everything right day after day after day, just staring at the screen, making it perfect.
Right.
Not for everyone. I don't think I could do it more than once. If I had to, I could get it done, but
We're thankful for those people.
Yes, we need that.
So are we.
That's, not me. I think I could if I had to. Like, if I really had to try, I could do it. But I'm also the kind of person who will be counting something, and then right when I'm, like, halfway through it, I lose count. And I'm like, oh, okay. Starting over. Yeah. So.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about the process for reaching out to get airtime? For a client or for a story or anything like that?
Is this where I give the phone number? Because I would love for everybody that sees this to call 363. No. I wish it was as easy as people reaching out to us all the time. It does happen. We're always happy to have that. Typically, those clients have an event or something that's more time sensitive in mind than the ones that we work with, on an ongoing basis. But sometimes, and those leads and those ideas are divvied up according to a lot of different things. One of them could be proximity, because we have reps that work the Iowa City area, for example, more so than Cedar Rapids. And so if they're in one market or the other, we'll make it easy on everybody and make sure that we've got somebody down there that can do it. Typically, usually when they'll come in, they'll either start with me or Sean, who's not here today, but we try and figure out, okay, where do we need to go here? With the client, what can we do? What's this look like? And then we take it from there. But most of the times, the folks call in, it's because we've got a relationship with them or we've been there before. As Julia was saying, we've got 7 sellers. We try and cover as much ground as possible to make sure that we're at least known before they need us. And then when the opportunity arises that they need us, they've got our card or they've got a number, or at least they've got recollection of having met us before. So we like to operate that way.
Okay. I did a sales position prior to this.
Yeah.
Right out of high school. I just kind of gave it a shot. So it's interesting to hear about radio sales because I did like publication sales and advertisements and things like that. So it's always interesting to me to hear other perspectives of that industry. Obviously, it wasn't for me. Here I am. But I love hearing about it. So, like, obviously, if you have a large business that you're reaching out to, you probably approach it a little differently than if you're approaching a nonprofit or a small, home-based business or just small business in general. So what are some things that you guys kind of do to manage that so that you're not approaching a small business with the same pitch as a huge corporation?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're not big into packaging and bundling like that and going in with an idea that we already have the right solution for them anyway. So the nice thing is we go in and tailor make whatever we need to do. Every client's got different goals, and we owe it to the client to start there. We start with them. It's not really what we have. We have airtime. We have it available. We can bundle it any way we need to. The question is what's right for the client and what's the best fit. And if we can get to that point, then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, because we'll propose what we think is the right answer, and then whether or not that's budgetary or not is up for the client to give us that feedback, and then we continue to refine it from there. But oftentimes we can hit it the first time because we've asked the right questions going into it, and we've been able to uncover that. So we really train and try hard to make sure that we're able to do that. Even if somebody calls in, that we have that conversation and give them our best effort there.
Okay, nice.
Is there anything that nonprofits can do to get airtime for their small budgets, possibly free? Is there anything you guys offer for that?
We do run, it's great to live in this community and have so many requests, right? We have so many people emailing us, calling us, telling us about really awesome events and things that people are doing. It's a caring community that takes care of a lot of things. It's also really hard because we want to help everybody, and yet we have to run some music or play some sports, or we don't have a radio station anymore, right? It can't be all ads and messages about that stuff. So it's hard to tell people no. But we tell a lot of people yes as well. We've got community service stories that run on Sunday mornings. We have a program called Z Cause where people can submit their information for their events off the website and be considered by a client to get free airtime in support of their nonprofit. We're lucky to live in such a community. Where a client would help us to support that is an amazing thing. And B, where there is so much to support, right? Not every community has the resources and all of the caring and successful nonprofit community that we have here.
We both went to Iowa. So having lived in Iowa City versus Cedar Rapids, I personally love that aspect of Cedar Rapids. I think it definitely stands out in comparison. I haven't lived a ton of places, but from where I have lived, I think it's amazing here. And I grew up on 2.9, so.
Yay!
So in terms of the cost, what types of factors kind of, obviously if an advertisement is running in the middle of the night, I'm assuming that's more low cost than something that's running at lunchtime or that 5 o'clock hour. So kind of, can you give us the rundown on the price points, I guess? Like not necessarily the figures, but just the trends, I guess?
Yeah, so those things, right? If somebody says specifically, I want to run between 7 and 7:45 in the morning only, versus if somebody says, I can run anytime between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., Monday through Sunday, right? And those are a very different rate. And then we also have clients who 15 seconds is enough to get their message out. Some need 30 seconds, some need 60 seconds to be sure that we have something. We wouldn't run 60 seconds just because their budget allowed for that. We'd want to run based on what's the listener hearing and how effective is that. But that makes a difference in the prices too. So if you were buying 15-second ads that ran from midnight to midnight versus if you're running a 60-second ad, but it can only run in between 7:30 and 8 a.m., it's a very different pricing structure. And weekends are somewhat cheaper as well that people don't often know. And I think of Saturday as, and Sunday as well, is kind of all drive time, right? We're running our errands, not just drive time, but also buy time, that we've got our credit cards out and we are all doing our business and, spending money in different places. So that can be a really good place to advertise as well.
Yeah, I would echo that. Yeah, and as far as the day parting goes, I mean, it goes back to that conversation we had with the client and understanding the flow of customers through their businesses, because we can tell a million stories about that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's what do they need to have happen? We may give them what they ask for, and then give them an alternative, proposal that might be similar, but give them better frequency in day parts that might make more sense for them. And it allows us to talk through that. But again, we're consulting at that point. So, I mean, that's a pretty common thing for us to do, because a lot of times, they always want morning, right? I mean, we hear that a lot, and that's okay. We do too. We love it. But it isn't necessarily for everybody either. So, and there's a lot of great ways to move the needle on their side, using other parts of our week. So we try to make sure we're proactive there.
And I think that, there's a lot of great radio stations in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area, not just ours, although I think ours are awesome. But we, sometimes you might not have the budget to be heard often enough on one big radio station. And maybe it's better if you can, do you want to buy 2 ads a week on a big radio station, or do you want to buy 20 ads a week on a smaller radio station? Kind of depends on what your product is and how much it costs. If you sell coffee, you need to sell a lot of coffee at $4.50 a cup, or $4.50 maybe per customer, than you do if you're selling an air conditioning unit or dental work or something like that might have a really high spending per customer. So there's a lot of factors in there.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any industries that you can think of right off the top of your head that you wouldn't recommend doing in the morning, or that you would recommend doing later, just out of curiosity?
There's nobody that I can think of that couldn't be a candidate for morning, just because of the entirety of the audience and what we put into it. But, it goes back to actually the way Julie answered it before, because the budget varies. Do I want 2 commercials in morning drive, for example, or should I be doing something that's over the course of the day where I have the ability to reach more people and impact more people? And I think that's ultimately up for the client to decide. But, like I said, that's where we may present what they asked for and then give them an alternative to think about, because we're not doing our job if we don't.
Like I said, I grew up on Xeno 2.9, so I noticed there's some advertisements where the on-air personality will kind of do that, dialogue to promote something, and then other times it's just a commercial. What is the difference there? Is it more costly to do one way or the other, or is that just up to a client's preference?
Some of it is the client's preference. Obviously, the client's client. We want them to be happy. And at the same time, we try hard to make sure each client's message sounds as good as it can. So we'll approach people and say, okay, well, we happen to have a voice that we trade with in another market that we think fits really well for this. Or this dialogue ad, we don't have the right players for it, but we have somebody that we can get for you. And some it's right for our talent to do it, but we don't, we wouldn't want to have one of our talents doing an ad for a water company, and then another water company says, hey, yeah, I'd really like them to do my ad. Well, that's not good for anybody. We want them to sound different and the best they can sound for each individual client, to tell the story. And a lot of times, not all the time, sometimes the announcer thing is great, but sometimes you want it to sound like an authentic person who might not speak exactly properly, who's, the punctuation is not in the right spots, everything's not perfect, but that can be engaging because you might think, hey, that is somebody that I want to go, to talk about taxes with. That sounds like a really great person that I could relate to. So it just depends on the client, but we try to match up so the message and the delivery of the message fits with what would work best for them.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I might hurt myself trying to think today. So is that something, like, do you usually consult with the client about these things? Is it more of a team effort? Like, I know in our industry, we like to get as many pairs of eyes on a project for a client as possible before it goes back to the client, or, things like that. Is it the same in your industry with radio, or is it just kind of one person consulting?
No, it's multiples. There's at least one or two other people besides the rep that's working directly with them. One of the other things, though, and we're a little bit unique in this way, we have a team structure to our sales process. And so the 7 folks that are on the sales team collaborate and work together for clients as much as needed or as little as needed. It doesn't, just, again, every situation is going to vary. And so at any given time, you might have 7 or 8 people, that may weigh in on something or put eyes on it, as you said. And it just depends on what it needs. If it's a quick turnaround and it's an event or a festival or parade or something, it's obviously time sensitive and probably isn't going to happen that way. But if this is a long-term client where we're really interested in making sure that we put our best foot forward and continue to do that, then the more the merrier, because we've got a full team of folks there that can help with that stuff. So
Okay, awesome.
Do you want to do voice work?
Do I?
Yeah.
No. I cringe when I hear my voice on a recording, so this podcast adventure has actually been scarring for me.
It builds character.
We actually found that our intern has the perfect radio voice, and she did a voiceover for one of our clients.
Oh,
and she's been
awesome.
here for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're like, you have an alternate career if this one doesn't work out for you.
Right.
Or just other duties as assigned.
Yes. That is in your job description.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I never think about those types of things. Like, Emily has someone that lives by her who was sharing some info with her about how her side job is literally recording audiobooks or audio textbooks, and she just does
mentions
that
that
on the side.
It's my neighbor, Monica.
Ooh, I know Monica.
Yeah.
I've known her since the dawn of time.
Yeah. I was talking to her because I told her I was doing a podcast, and she was like, "Oh, I was in radio forever," and I was like, "What a small world."
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that stuff, it never has really occurred to me until I started, doing the podcast, and we were obviously researching topics and things, and I'm like, wow, obviously, Cassie, those voices get there somehow. But before, I was just like, oh yeah, the magical voice that makes, reads the book to me, like, okay.
And how many times do you think, because of what I do, maybe, I think when I'm listening to an audible book, that I think, how many times did they have to read that line to get it right and to say all those words correctly? At least they can edit. Do you edit in the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
God love you.
Well, and I was lucky enough to go along with our intern when she did the voiceover. So I got to see it, and that was the first time I had been around any of that.
Nice.
And it was, she probably read a total of 10 lines tops, and we were there for a while, like just getting the tone right, making sure she was expressing it in a positive way, just how it'll come off to listeners and stuff. And that made me think, too, a whole book, oh my goodness.
Right.
Good Lord.
And a lot of times if it's a fiction in particular, right, there's a director. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine all of those words with someone listening to everyone going, oh, I didn't quite like that. That'd be hard. That's hard work.
Oh, yeah. I think.
Read that again and sound angry.
Yeah. Keep correcting me and I won't have to try very hard.
I just finished Amy Poehler's Yes Please on Audible, and she reads it herself.
Yeah.
So it is just amazing. You can picture her just in her little office reading it and with her inflection. And
you're friends now.
Yeah, we're besties. Yeah. I cried and laughed and cried again.
She's a good one. There's nobody that would really be able to read one of her books.
Exactly. I was surprised that she was reading it, but then I was like, it makes sense. Like, you have to read about your own life.
Yeah. Well, and she's just such a personality anyways, like, by herself. I love her. Oh, my God. I could do a whole podcast episode about how much I love her and Tina Fey.
Put it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on the list.
Call them. Maybe one of them would do it over the phone. You never know.
Oh, my gosh.
We're going to be real friends with them.
I would cry. For real. The entire time they would just hear me crying. So happy.
Could Julie and I do the guest social media people?
Yeah.
Of course. Now can you autograph it?
We could do that.
All right. So if there was one or two pet peeves that you had with marketers, what would they be? And how would you suggest they not do those?
We like them all, so there really aren't any pet peeves. And it goes back to us building relationships. Most of that stuff's predictable, and it's not hard to work through it. When you spend as much time as we want to work in conjunction with a client, it just doesn't happen very often. And in the case that there's something that's not quite right or something along those lines, I mean, it's easily fixable if the relationship's there. So it kind of goes back to that, from my perspective. I don't know.
Yeah. This is why I hired Steve, because he's so nice, right? He just wants to help.
Were you
people.
supposed to say that?
No, he's so nice.
Do we need to go off the record?
He wants to help. I think that I have seen people, and I don't know if I would call this a pet peeve, but something that I try to help people through, that I'll say, hey, I couldn't sleep tonight if I didn't stop us right now and say, what you're proposing right now is not what I would recommend. Mm-hmm. You are the client. I will absolutely do what you want. But can you give me 90 seconds to tell you why I would do it my way? And then you can make your decision. So I'll be able to sleep tonight if you give me that 90 seconds to share about how I think, maybe you're trying to get more out of this budget than is reasonable, or maybe your expectation for who's in the market for a car or loan or mattress or whatever it is that we're talking about. It's a really slim part of the world that's ready to make that purchase today. So some of those things is just talking about expectations and being able to communicate with client that my experience is X, but I know you're in this business every day, so let's just talk that through and compare and see if we should meet in the middle, or again, you're the client, or we can just do it your way.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess maybe it's not pet peeves that we're wondering about, but maybe industry best practices, I guess, or manners, radio manners. Do people ever have bad radio manners? Just maybe small details about requests or things, or maybe they're just stubborn and you're just kind of like, ah.
I think sometimes people think that if we come and broadcast live, that the whole world will stop what they're doing and come to us. Mm. And that can be a hard thing when they're like, hey, we have I was going to say prize wheel, but I had some clients do a rocking job with a prize wheel that they owned last week. So, but sometimes it's hard to create a parade and to get people to stop what they're doing for $2 off. Mm-hmm. Or, save 25% if it's not something that you absolutely need right now. And, maybe it is, wouldn't it be nice if we had the first sunny Saturday in how many days? And if you were selling something that was mundane with a not great offer, it's going to be hard to pull people to that thing to, hey, you need to be here between 11 and 1 today. And while most of the community is like, I just want to put my face in the sunshine today.
Give me 5 minutes.
Yes, I need what you want, but could I come on my schedule instead of the business's schedule? Mm-hmm. Could I come then? So it's hard to balance some of that, like what should be a brand building campaign versus what should be a right now event based campaign, and trying to get that, not for all clients. I think that there are some preconceived notions about radio that people think, oh, well, I'm only in it for this little sprint. And we think of ourselves more as marathoners.
Mm-hmm. Raining again.
Always.
But I have a view of Potosi, so I'm good.
I was going to say, you guys missed the whole storm that rolled in and then rolled out.
It was right behind
nice.
you.
Oh.
It was like, you couldn't see out the window for a couple minutes there.
I heard it, but I didn't turn around to see it.
No, yeah, but these walls are thin. Like, Emily has the very far office down there, and if you're sitting in the conference room and she's moving around in her computer chair and it's quiet, you can hear it perfectly.
It must be like a sound chamber where it just like shoots over down the hallway.
Oh, probably.
Wave ducting.
Yeah.
You guys broadcast, but with no equipment.
I told them, I said, we're fairly new in this podcasting business.
Can you tell?
Don't be intimidated by all of our fancy equipment, please.
We have toys, but our space is not nice. Like if you like concrete block walls.
Right.
Those are pretty fancy.
Yes, it's dark.
I'm sure it pays off, though, when you don't have people yelling.
Well, we always say we're on the south side of Cedar Rapids, so it's close for all of the people who work in Iowa City
Mhm.
or live in Iowa City. We have a lot of our staff live down there. And it, like, not that many people come over.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you need? You
Yeah.
know, we'd rather have a fancy piece of equipment instead of
Oh
a
yeah.
fancier office.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get more use out of one than the other
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
by far.
That's how I am with my toys and stuff.
Yeah. Quality over quantity, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, now I'm all off topic here.
I think we're on the last question.
Are we?
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how to read, guys.
I don't even have my shoes on.
Wait, we'll interview you guys. Come on.
Yeah, go ahead. So is it easier to have people call in and do something live over the phone, or do you, like, you kind of already answered it, you said not very many people come to the studio. So is it more calling in live or just sending pre-recorded things in?
We have them come in whenever we can. Obviously, we have the production equipment, and we've got very nice production equipment, and we like to show it off. We also give studio station tours, too, if anybody wants to join us. But we'd rather have them come in just because we can, work on it and edit, and, the sound quality is great. We've got a couple of people in commercial services that are phenomenal at their jobs, and they help ease everybody through the process. So, I mean, when we have our choice, we much prefer using our equipment to do the recording so that we can work it.
So you're saying we should have gone to your office for this?
Maybe.
instead of ours?
Maybe.
We're just getting ready to do our first podcast as well, so we'll see. I'll follow up and
We'll
let you know if
compare
it's
notes.
easier for us or not.
Please do.
Oh gosh, they're gonna show us up with their sound quality and their skills.
I don't know about that. And we have a really quiet studio that's it's almost creepy when you close the door
Mhm.
that you can
Like hear your own
hear
thoughts.
yourself, right? Yeah, you hear
Mhm.
blood rushing through and you like
People breathing.
yes.
Mhm.
But the person who runs that equipment, our commercial services director, Mo Holland, she was a theater major in school, so she's a good coach too, right? So I can go in there and be like, I don't want to do this, but I'm her boss, so I know that she will edit me so that I'll be happy with it. But people can come in and she's just she's so kind, and B, she's really a good coach to say, okay, now mimic me, or could we do it this way? And she's just really, people enjoy working with her and giving her another read. And from that theater and persuasion background instead of more the radio background where they might want everybody to sound like this, she lets them be themselves, but she makes it the best version of that.
Okay, but we need her help.
You guys are doing great.
Come for the station tour. I'll introduce you.
I want to. We should do that.
Well, it's cool hearing these names. I mean, we hear that name on the radio, and
Yeah,
you're just like,
she's-
oh yeah, we just, she's our coworker. And I'm like,
Yeah.
she's like famous to me.
Really though. It's like growing up, you're like, people on the radio and people on the Weather Channel are famous.
Right.
And then you get to be an adult and you're like, oh my gosh, I saw that person downtown Cedar Rapids. And then somebody else is like, well, they live here.
Yeah.
Of course you did. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. So that's all we had for, the questions. Is there anything else that you guys can think of as industry experts that maybe we aren't asking that we should be asking, or anything that would be good advice for somebody looking to get radio time? Or
We feel professionally like the most important part and the thing that seems to be kind of an afterthought a lot of times is the message. And I'm sure that you guys agree with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
That if we can get the message right, even if we're talking to a smaller audience or a different audience or whatever, if you're saying the right things, then people want to buy things. So that seems to be in a lot of situations. People will just talk about platform. Where should I advertise? Well, let's talk about what you're going to say first and work from there. And if we get that part right, then everyone will be
content.
persuaded.
Mhm.
Content.
Mhm.
Our content strategist over here.
That's me.
Budgeting for different advertising, as we're talking about what platform should be on, what message should we be on, what's our content. You can have an elephant in your commercial on the radio. You can have a whole jackhammer or a symphony or whatever you need. And there are some platforms where it's really difficult to do that.
Mhm.
Right? We're all good at buying images on the internet to, of stock photos, and we can make some things happen in the print world too if we've got a good editor. But that's one of the fun things about our business is really anything goes. If we can dream it, we can make that happen and make it real on the radio.
Right. Don't forget to check out the second part of this episode as our very own Vicki Dirksen describes what her 20 plus years in the industry has taught her about radio buying. Thanks, guys.